Coffee Pot Conversations.
Bonjour et bienvenue to Coffee Pot Conversations, a podcast about Paris and my long-standing habit of mistaking observation for understanding. My name is Paul and this is episode 5.4, King Louis XIV, part 2. We left the last episode at the point where I started talking about the war of religion. So we're going to sort of pick it up from there and carry on. I should tell you that just before the conversation starts, but just, why not now? Because you'll forget. So it'll be a little surprise. Anyway, enough of the waffle. I have my trusty pink post-it note, and you'll see I'm all colour coding now like that. Hey! Yeah. So let me just pop this here. Oh, so professional. Now, Carly will be very impressed with me. That's Carly from work. I was meant to go out socialising with them the other day. Didn't make it because I'm unsociable. Didn't want to go. But Carly did say that she will watch the episode on her train journey to the office on Tuesday, which is the day of release, every second and fourth Tuesday of the month, Monday to Monday, January to May, and then July through to November. As previously stated, I am off again in May to Paris, where I've already written some episodes, and hopefully I will have some more written by then. That'll be season 6. I then got to worry about season 7 near at the time. Huge panic. So, long post-it note. Post-it note is, I almost applied for the Paris Marathon. I had the last tranche of tickets, and I was umming and ahhing, but 300 quid just to go and to run as a fat 50-year-old with no training in like 2 months. It's like, no, can't really justify that. Plus, I got the idea home exhibition on that day, so it would have meant having to leave London, Olympia, to then zoom over to St Pancras, jump the train, get there for about 8-9 o'clock at night, go to bed, get up in the morning. So I would have been wearing my running gear. Maybe a tracksuit with backpack on my back so I can run afterwards, I don't know. And then come back Sunday night, because Monday, Rory has work experience with me, so that's in April, no Paris Marathon. I'm going to attempt to do it in 2032, so that gives me 6 years to get plenty of training, and that will be my third Paris Marathon. And that's a gap of 10 years, but 10 years, nice way of retiring. We went to rugby with Jasper on that Sunday, and he unfortunately got injured. He pretty much got swung around, dumped to the floor, and then trodden on around the ribs. Winded him quite a bit, but he was all right after that. Didn't go back on the sub, but what else? Oh, I don't know if this is the news conclusion coming up, but Oliver G was on Australian news talking about Cafe Pli. So if you get a chance, check out his Patreon, because that's where you get a lot of the extra stuff, and that's Oliver G of the Eiffel Tower. Honestly, give it a go. That's the chap that got me unknowingly inspired in podcasts. I have a long history with Oliver G. They just released or just reached their goal for their 5th children's book, Sophie in Paris. I would say go and pledge, but it's too late. The crowdfunding's finished. But when it's out, if you're in Paris, go buy a copy. It'll be in all the big bookshops, the Louvre shop, stuff like that. So go and support your local podcaster. Anyway, what else have I got to say? I've mentioned Carly from work, so hopefully she's going to like and subscribe and carry on listening. Pick up all the back catalogue that's lingering around there. We have a message for afterwards, which is going to be Rory's birthday, because Rory's birthday's coming up. If I don't mention it now, then by the time the episode's released, it will be after his birthday. But more about that if I remember after the news. And talking the news, this is really bright. Paul, are you in Ibiza at the minute? No, Paul, it's just the glare from the lights on my shiny forehead. As Paris shakes off the last of the winter slush and people look toward the cherry blossom, let's take a look back at what's been happening since we last spoke. We've had medals, ice skating, and a very distinct lack of competitive cows. Whilst a little late to the reporting party, the biggest story since August finally reached its conclusion. Ali Akbar, the 73-year-old guardian of the printed word, spent February basking in his new title of Chevalier. Though he was officially knighted at the Elysee on January 28th, the victory lap has lasted all through the month. Informed in August and meant to be honoured in September, the collapse of the Bayrou government and the Bleu Contour protests turned the Palace Elysee into a fortress. Ali, ever the pro, just kept pedalling through the chaos until the dust settled and his medal was pinned. The city turned into a literal ice rink as Météo France kept Paris under a yellow alert for snow and ice for several days, leading to what historians may one day call the Great Crocodile Slide. But they won't, because I can't even pronounce it. Anyway, while the tourists loved the snowy views of the Eiffel Tower, the commuters were busy dodging the RERC strikes that hit on February 19th. Between the frozen tracks and the picket lines, the city moved at the pace of a tired snail. But at least the photos were worthy of Instagram. The River Seine has spent the last few days showing exactly why it's the boss of the city. Following the relentless battering of Storm Nice, the Seine peaked early this week at just over 4 metres above its normal level at the Austerlitz measurement point. While that's a far cry from the historic flood of 1910, it was more than enough to trigger the closure of the lower quays. The latest reading I have is that it's now flowing at less than 3.5 metres. The good news is that it's officially stabilised and is beginning a very slow retreat. The bad news, because the ground in northern France is as saturated as a soaked sponge, officials warn it will take weeks before the riverside motorways and commuter paths are fully dry and cleared of river silt. That's debris, not the river silt. But the world's most famous museum has had a rough trot recently, and it wasn't just the Seine causing headaches. On Friday, February 13th, the Darou, home to neoclassical giants like the Coronation and Napoleon, had to be abruptly closed due to a major water leak from an outdated hydraulic system. While the Mona Lisa stayed dry, conservationists spent the following week hovering over a damaged 19th century mural and a ceiling by Charles Menier. Add to that the longest strike in Louvre history and the dismantling of a €10 million ticket fraud during that same week, and the museum was less a temple of art and more a scene from a heist movie. At the minute, many galleries have been shuttered or operating on limited hours, leaving tourists wandering around the Tuileries in the rain instead. The 62nd Salon de l'Agriculture, which runs from February 21st to the 1st of March, is a strange affair this year. I remember reporting on it last year back in season 3. But for the first time in history, there are no cattle competitions due to the discovery on farms of LSD back in June of last year. That's lumpy skin disease, not lysergic acid diethylamide, chemically known as C20H25N3O. I possibly should have said maladie dermatologique instead. But imagine 600,000 visitors wandering in a pot of a sight to look at some very handsome goats and sheep who must be thrilled to finally have the spotlight to themselves. Despite the absence of cattle competitions, the face of the 2026 show is Beguine, a Brahman cow from Martinique. She will be accompanied by a small delegation of 5 cows, 2 heifers and 1 bull to represent the breed's resilience and diversity. On February 20th, the 6th arrondissement was briefly overrun by cheekbones and velvet. The Timothée Chalamet lookalike contest actually happened, drawing hundreds of curly-haired hopefuls. However, it was limited to only the first 30 entrants through the doors of l'Arlequin Cinema in Rue de Rennes, and the winner didn't get a movie deal, but he did receive enough bragging rights to last until at least the next June sequel. It was peak Paris. Slightly ridiculous, highly fashionable, and entirely unnecessary. The Lunar New Year, or as we used to call it, the Chinese New Year, reached its peak over the weekend of February 21st. While the 13th arrondissement was packed, the Belleville Lantern Festival was the real star. The year of the horse galloped in with street food markets and dragon dances. In case you're wondering, because I was, every year is assigned one of 12 animals, and this order never changes. According to legend, the Great Race, the order was decided by how the animals finished the race across a massive river. Each year is also assigned one of 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal or water. Elements change every 2 years, each element having a yin and a yang year. So fire, for example, is the element for both 2026 and 2027. Because the 12 animals and 5 elements rotate at different speeds, it takes exactly 60 years for the same combination to reappear. 2026 is the year of the fire horse, meaning the last time we saw a fire horse was 1966. Maybe it's time to place a wager on England winning the World Cup. February 22nd marked the anniversary of the Revolution of 1848. It remains the gold standard for Parisian protest, King Louis Philippe tried to stop the people from holding a political dinner party, so the people stopped him from being king. It serves as a permanent reminder to the French government: if you value your crown, never interfere with the Parisians' dinner. And finally, Frenchy abroad have a proper home. Friend of the show and all-round super good guy Christian, with his band of helpers, have found a place to call their own. Now, to say this chap deserves it is an understatement, and I sincerely hope that he continues to catch his dreams. Episode 1.3, recorded all the way back in November 2023, is when I first got to meet him, and he's had a tremendous journey. If anybody wants to find out what I mean by how amazing he and his fashion brand are, please make your way to the 17th arrondissement to 55 Rue de la Condamine. Mention my name. You don't get any special treatment, but just watch him smile when he knows who sent you. And now it's time for this. Sing along with me. Well, with Rory, because I'm going to mute the microphone.
Coffee Pot Conversations.
As a graduate of religious studies, I covered the European Reformation in a bit of detail. You need to bear with me on this. Starting October 1517, it had a profound impact all over Western Europe. Martin Luther, the German, started it, and the Frenchman John Calvin played his part around 20 years later. The wider-reaching alterations of these religious changes aren't to be explored in this podcast unless there's a major call for it. But here's a rough breakdown of how it links in with the Sun King. Everything connects to the Sun King. With Calvin's intellectualism approach, the higher nobles, clergy, military officers were quick to take up on the Protestant reforms. As these people were very influential within France, the monarchy of the time was tolerant of this new approach to religion. In 1560, with the first church having already been set up in the Parisian home, the combined languages of German and Flemish brought the term Huguenot to the collective of people that followed this line of thought. The Edict of Saint-Germain in January 1562 meant that, with certain restrictions, Huguenots were given rights to practice. It wasn't long until the massacre of Vassy, regardless of who instigated the situation, set in motion the French wars of religion. Despite a truce agreed upon in 1563, it was in 1572 when the St. Bartholomew massacre took place, making many Huguenots leave France for England, Germany and the Netherlands. The Edict of Nantes in 1598 called an end to all of the religious turmoil and the civil wars ended. However, surprisingly there's a however, upon the crowning of King Louis XIV, the Huguenots once again faced troubles. Was it down to his mother being a Roman Catholic, or perhaps his advisors whispering in his ear that the minority were eroding his absolute authority on the monarchy? The Edict of Fontainebleau in 1685 meant that Protestantism became illegal. Of the 800,000 Huguenots living in France, they faced an option: face death, convert to Catholicism, or flee the country. More than 200,000 Huguenots fled France. The king didn't want these peoples to join the old enemies, nor to reach the border where large Protestant communities were based in Italy, and around 12,000 of these southbound Protestants were either shipped off to camps where the majority starved to death, or having survived, were shipped off to Germany. This edict is also known as the revocation of the Edict of Nantes. This was not a particularly good move where Louis' reign is concerned, because it's from here that things start to take a bit of a downfall. The War of the League of Augsburg, also known as the War of the Grand Alliance, or the 9 Years' War, was another one of those wars that wasn't simply us against them. Here was a war that was a culmination of various smaller battles taking place across Europe. Another avenue that I'm not going to venture down in coffee pot conversations is the British monarchy. But I need to a little. Do you remember William III of Orange, the chap that flooded Amsterdam? He married the Duke of York's daughter. The Duke of York became King James II of England, King James VII of Scotland. Being a Catholic wasn't particularly liked for his agreement of Louis XIV's religious persecution of the Protestants over in France, especially as England had a Protestant majority now. The Immortal Seven sent a letter to William to invade England and, more battles over and done with, took the crown as King William III. Meanwhile, King James II, who was allowed to flee England, made his way to France and died in Saint-Germain-en-Laye. Okay, so with the Protestant king on the throne of England, he joined the Dutch Republic, because remember he was Dutch, but also with Bavaria, Brandenburg, Saxony, the Holy Roman Empire, Spain and Savoy, under the umbrella title of the Grand Alliance, Grande Alliance. They were there to stop Louis XIV from acting on his intimidating threats of expansion. Okay, so the war started in 1688 when Louis XIV invaded the Rhineland. whilst the Holy Roman Empire were fighting the Turks. The Holy Roman Empire was France's main rival, and that's not a problem. Anyone can have rivals. However, remember that incestuous family tree I tried to explain? Would you recall that Philip IV had a son from his second marriage? He was Charles II, and with poor health from birth, as a result of constant family inbreeding perhaps, now exceptionally ill. His lands could pass directly to either of his closest dynastic relations. Habsburgs, that's the Spanish line, or the Bourbons, which yet means King Louis XIV's family. A little family dispute, eh? Where are we going over Christmas? The many battles and wars that took place during the 9 years took a lot of resources away from the English, Dutch and the French, who were also facing a famine. It was agreed that Louis would keep Alsace and a few other places that he'd won during the war. However, Lorraine and any advances on the east of the Rhine were to be returned. He also had to accept that William was the rightful ruler of England, and this highlights another slight family issue. King James II was a daughter of Princess Henriette of France, who was one of the daughters of King Henry II of France and his wife Maria de Medici, parents to King Louis XIII and Princess Isabel of France. Blown your mind just one more time, we need to look at William III of Orange, who was instrumental in removing James II from the English throne. Deep breath. Maybe I should just want to get a bit of pen and paper. Henry IV, the man on the horse on the Pont Neuf in Paris, and his wife Maria de Medici had 6 children. One was King Louis XIII, father of Louis XIV, and one was Isabel of France, mother to Maria Theresa, who has become the bride of Louis XIV. Another daughter of Henry IV and Maria de Medici was Princess Henriette, who was the mother of James II. However, she was also the mother of Princess Royal Mary of England, the mother of William III, who married his uncle's daughter, his first cousin. So yeah, you really do need to draw this up. Back to Louis XIV, cousin to both James and William, and we move on to the War of the Spanish Succession. When Charles II of Spain died, he was without an heir. Remember when I said about King Louis challenging the hereditary rights of Spanish Netherlands? How he thought it only fair that King Philip II of Spain should give his land to his firstborn rather than any subsequent male heir as part of the custom. It seems that the subsequent male heir made a big decision for himself. He was without an heir and with health failing decided that he would leave the lands of his throne to Philip of Anjou, second eldest grandson of Louis XIV. However, this worried many of the European leaders of the time, as it would lead to a rather powerful unified state of France and Spain. There was land and wealth in the Netherlands, in Italy, and at this time the Americas. William III was still a little upset at the Sun King's recognition, rightly or wrongly, of James II of England being the rightful king. As a result of the constant family bickering over land and religion, English and Dutch trade with Spain had been blocked. And to stop all this stuff and nonsense, England, Holland, the Roman Empire and now Prussia all decided to support the Spanish rival to the throne. They wanted Archduke Charles to run the country. Another family tree alert. King Philip III of Spain sided, amongst others, Philip IV of Spain, who was the father of both Charles II of Spain and Louis XIV's wife Maria Theresa, and also Princess Anne of Austria, the mother of Louis XIV. There was another daughter, Princess Maria Anna, who married Emperor Ferdinand III of the Holy Roman Empire. They then had Emperor Leopold, who, with Eleanor of Pfalz, had Karl or Charles VI of the Holy Roman Empire. And this is Archduke Charles, second cousin to Louis XIV. I say it quick because it's less painful. During the time of the War of the Spanish Succession, 1701 to 1713, it became the costliest and largest campaign across Europe. Because of the increase in taxation required to fund it, the population was suddenly taxed regardless of their social status, and there appeared a strain on the relationships between the King of France and the nobility. This war was not winning Louis XIV any favours. Protestants in the southern region of France started a guerrilla war in 1703. In 1704, the French suffered a major defeat in Blenheim, in southwest Germany, finally destroying the myth of French invincibility. This is a battle that's fascinating, but alas, will be glossed over here. In 1704, the British and Dutch captured Gibraltar, and a year later, Barcelona was under Allied occupation. However, 3 years later, the joined forces of England and Portugal were defeated by the Duke of Berwick, a title created for one of 4 of King James II's illegitimate children from Arabella Churchill in the Battle of Almanza in Spain. James Fitzjames was born in Moulins, France, but lived in England until his father's death position. This victory, along with the one he orchestrated to recapture Madrid earlier, made the Allied forces withdraw from Aragon and allowed Philip IV of Spain to wear the Spanish crown, but at the cost of losing his French lineage to the throne. Ouais.
C'est là, c'est là. Il est juste là, regardez. Tu vas tout changer. N'inquiétez pas pour ça. Oui, le ticket.
Non,
C'est bon. Merci.
Merci, monsieur. Okay, starting that a little bit again. In July 1704, the British and Dutch captured Gibraltar, and a year later, Barcelona was under Allied occupation. 3 years later, the joined forces of England and Portugal were defeated by the Duke of Berwick, a title created for one of 4 of King James II's illegitimate children from Arabella Churchill. This was in the Battle of Almanza in Spain. James Fitzjames was born in Moulins, France, but lived in England until his father's deposition. This victory, along with the one he orchestrated to recapture Madrid earlier, made the Allied forces withdraw from Aragon and allowed Philip V of Spain to wear the Spanish crown, but at the cost of losing his French lineage to the throne. This was agreed upon by the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713, whereby Britain gained Gibraltar, territories in North America and the Mediterranean. France were forced to recognise the Protestant succession in Britain of the Church, and despite Queen Anne having a Catholic father, King James II, her uncle King Charles II, first cousin of Louis XIV, decided it best if she were raised a Protestant. Something her own first cousin and brother-in-law by marriage to Mary, her elder sister, and daughter James II, don't forget, William III approved of. It's so complex. With a whole shift of military might, a lack of expected territorial gains, ongoing financial burdens and religious power shifting, Louis XIV's reign came to an end in 1715. With his death and his heir being his 5-year-old great-grandson, Louis XV meant that some of France were concerned that they may face a similar style of leadership. Others were hopeful that lessons had been learned. Now, I know I've discussed the military campaigns quite a lot here, but there is more about King Louis XIV that I haven't included. I will try and come back to these in later episodes, in later seasons. But I do hope that I've given you a fair amount of information about him to raise a little interest and insight into the longest reigning monarch, internationally recognised over a sovereign state. He reigned for 72 years and 110 days, from the 14th of May 1643 until the 1st of September 1715.
Coffee Pot Conversations.
And that was episode 5.4, King Louis XIV, part 2. Yeah, it's. I'm going to leave that for coming up. So, as I mentioned before, the conversation and the news in the intro, Rory's birthday is coming up, so it's a big event for him because it's his birthday. If you have a birthday coming up, send me an email, birthday@anenglishmaninparis.blog. I'll give you a little shout out, as long as I can fit it in with the timing, because last season I was no good with that and I kept forgetting. Even at the beginning of the year, I think I kept forgetting. I'm not going to do a backlog of birthdays that I've forgotten because, you know, they've gone. I'll try and remember them next year on time. So that's Vonnie, Lainey, Emily. I think I got Jasper on time. I probably forgot my mum's. That was back in October. Hey ho. What else have we got? Oh, I probably forgot Nev's as well, but that's in December. So, like my dad in July, I'm never going to be able to make him in time because there's no episodes. It gives me time to write the new bits, tidy up, get ahead. It never works. Never works. That, I think, is it. Don't forget, like, follow, subscribe, all the rest of the blah blahs. I'm on Instagram as well, an Englishman in Paris blog. That's really it. So now it's time for Jasper's jingle.
Coming up on Coffee Pot Conversations.
We have episode 5.5 halfway through the season, but this is King Louis XIV part 3. It should have been King Louis XIV part 2, but part 1 overran. I cut it, became part 2, for 2 parts. So King Louis XIV part 1 and part 2 are actually King Louis XIV part 1. King Louis XIV part 3 is actually King Louis XIV part 2. Yeah. What else do we have? We have Rory's birthday. So, yeah, that was another shout out for Rory there. And just more research. We don't care about that because that's, telling you what's going on as opposed to what's coming up. So what is coming up is episode 0.5, King Louis XIV, part 3, as well as, I believe, I talk about the parks and gardens of Paris. Before that will be the Académie Française, so that's going to be episode 5.6. That I know because I'm editing that one at the moment. Well, not at the moment because I'm recording this, but I've got a day off. So, actually I'm not doing that at all. I am writing for season 6 during my day off and taking Roy to the hospital to get his leg sorted out with the physio. Rugby injury. So, talking of Rory, talking of rugby, talking of, well, nothing to do with jingles, but Rory, take it away.
Coffee Pot Conversations.